On this week's Vaticano, the Pope gets a new Twitter handle. The Vatican calls all bishops to uphold the Catholic duty of true charity, and university students begin Advent by praying Vespers with the successor of Peter. Also, the importance of engaging people of other religions in dialogue is discussed, and the Pope calls all believers to share the faith with others as if they were family. The Vatican City-State seeks collaborators to finish restoration work on the colonnade of St. Peter's Square. And finally, the Pope speaks of the importance of Advent at the Angelus, and the Circus comes to town. All this coming up. This Twitter account is actually the Pope's. In the 24 hours that followed the announcement of its existence, he actually tallied up 500,000 followers. That is, even before he had even sent out a single tweet. Expectations are high in the Vatican for how far and wide his messages might reach.
The future is wide open. Obviously, it's going to start next Wednesday on Our Lady of Guadalupe with the Pope responding to questions about faith. After that, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but the fact of the matter is the Pope writes a lot, the Pope speaks a lot, and there could be a number of tweets coming out.
Other initiatives from the Vatican, like Pope to You, have already placed the Pontiff and his messages on Twitter and other social media platforms. This time, however, it's different. It's actually the Pope's handle. It's at Pontifex.
Obviously, security is one issue, but security is an issue every day with the Vatican website. So we'll deal with it. There will be other imitators out there, some of them good-willed, some of them not so good-willed. We'll deal with that as well. My personal input will be trying to see that it happens as often as possible. I think it's a great means. Obviously, the Vatican's been cautious about doing it actually with the Pope. You know, it's one thing for a movie star, a soccer player to do it. It's another thing for a Pope to put his name on tweets, but I think it's a great way to reach a whole lot of people, and the more we can do it, the better.
The success of the initiative is still to be proven, but at least for now, hundreds of thousands have logged on to hear what he has to say. The effectiveness of Catholic charity in the world is the focus of a special letter from Pope Benedict XVI to the world's bishops.
The document was born because the Holy Father wrote in his first encyclica, Deus Caritas Est, he wrote number 32, that there is actually a lack in the legislation of the Church about the responsibility of the bishop for the charitable work of the Church. This is in that sense that the canon law mentions the responsibility of the bishop to have moderation over the work of apostolate in his diocese, but this is not said in detail what this moderation can consist in. Because the Holy Father mentioned this in Deus Caritas Est, number 32, as I said, so it was necessary to specify more which are the responsibilities of the bishop, especially of the bishop in the field of the charitable work of the Church. And why was this necessary also from a theological point of view? Because we say always, and this was very clear said in the encyclical Deus Caritas Est, this is a very important way the Holy Father showed us. The social work of the Church is, before being social, is an ecclesial work. That means must be linked with the Church, and the expression of the communion, of the unity within the Church is exactly the bishop. So this was necessary to bring back, if you want, this insight that the work done by the Church before being social is an ecclesial work.
The letter highlights the duty of diocesan bishops and parish priests to see that in charitable service the faithful are not led into error or misunderstanding.
This document will surely contribute to underline again this Catholic identity, and will in that sense also help Catholic charities to give exactly this testimony to Christ. I say always we have the big possibility to our Catholic charities, to our Catholic charitable works, serve millions of people. And this can be an important way how people can meet the church and through the church Jesus Christ. And in that sense, I think we are in a big process of renewal to serve better and to realize better the mission Christ has given to his church.
The letter can be found in its entirety on the Vatican's website, www.vatican.va. Here in St. Peter's Basilica on December 1st, the Pope prayed the first Vespers of Advent with Roman University students. It's a yearly appointment that gives young people from the many universities present in Rome an intimate moment with a successor of St. Peter, and it gives him a chance to address them directly.
Cari amici, viviamo in un contesto in cui spesso
We live in a context in which we often encounter indifference towards God. But I believe that in the inner depths of those people, also in your peers, whose lives are distant from God, there resides a nostalgia for the infinite, for transcendence. It is your task within the university halls to bear witness to God who is close to us, and who is made manifest also in the search for truth, which is the soul of any intellectual pursuit. Faith is the door that God opens in our lives in order to lead us to the encounter with Christ, in which the present day of humanity meets that of God. Christian faith is not the adhesion to a generic or undefined God, but rather to the living God, who in Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh, entered into human history and revealed himself as man's Redeemer. To believe means to entrust one's own life to him, as only he can give it fullness in time and open it to hope beyond time.
The Pope also invited the students to join him at World Youth Day in Rio de Janeiro. He said it'll be an important opportunity for them to offer their testimony and commitment to the world's moral and social renewal.
Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
Speaking dialogue. It's an easy thing to do among friends, but what about when it's with complete strangers? Sharing the faith through dialogue was the theme of this conference at Rome's Gregorian University.
One element which is very important, is basic, is we cannot avoid our identity. It's important to keep our identity. The identity is we have to compare sometimes, but we have to acknowledge that we have different way to consider the divine, and we cannot avoid these differences. Yes, the communalities, but the identities are, to me, the instrument many times to enter in a deeper dialogue. I think we have to consider, like Professor Cox told us today, this is a fact, and we cannot ignore such kind of facts, but we have also to maybe in certain moment to renew our way to speak to the others, always without ignoring our identity. To me, it's important the emotion, but it's much more important the truth.
Yo creo que es uno de los temas más importantes que la Iglesia enfrenta hoy.
I think it's one of the most important issues the Church is facing today, which is not only the encounter between cultures, but the encounter of religions. And it's a question that causes much reflection among theologians. The main message of this conference has been to give us a refresher, basically to go back to the central message of Christ and the gospel, how Jesus lived, and what he did to go out and meet others.
And this priest has vowed to walk in the footsteps of St. Francis Xavier as a missionary, living out this dialogue with his life.
It's very interesting because most often the relationship plays are totally different from what is reported by journals, media or television. Because normally the media would run to a place where there's a riot or where there's a conflict. But in day-to-day life, you have a Hindu neighbor, you have a Sikh neighbor, you have a Muslim neighbor, you got to live with them. And therefore, what we have, what we can call is the dialogue of life, the first thing. We share the common necessities of life together. That's the first one. The second thing is, India is very interesting because almost everybody shares a very deep spirituality. Everybody has this longing for God and wants to show this longing for God. And therefore, living together, working together, and then sharing your religion with somebody else, sharing the gospel with somebody else always becomes more fun, more of a pleasure, because there's so much to enrich each other from. Well, I myself have worked for 6 years as a missionary on the borders of Pakistan and India, Punjab. And it's very interesting to work in a context where different religions live together. We were a minority, a small minority, say about 1,500 Catholics in a population of 2 million. I was principal of a school that had only 8 Catholics in it, the rest were Hindus or Sikhs. So actually proclaiming the gospel becomes a challenge. But what is very interesting is that when you start sharing with your life, with your witness, and then you start sharing the love of God with people, they do respond to you. So in a multi-religious context, I think first and foremost is respect for the other religion. Second is, I believe that we have a gift received from God, the gift of faith in Jesus Christ, and this gift is to be shared with others without thinking that we are superior, but thinking that we have brothers and sisters to whom we can share the good news.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Pax vobis.
The Pope's weekly catechesis on faith took place once again in a packed Paul VI hall in the Vatican. He spoke of sharing the faith with all people as family.
Dear brothers and sisters, in our continuing catechesis for the year of faith, we now consider the question of how we are to speak about God to our contemporaries, communicating the Christian faith as a response to the deepest longings of the human heart. This means bringing the God of Jesus Christ to the men and women of our time. It means bearing quiet and humble witness each day to the core of the gospel message. This is the good news of the God who is love, who has drawn near to us in Jesus Christ, even to the cross, and who in the resurrection brings us the hope and promise of eternal life. Jesus gave us an example. by his loving concern for people's questions, struggles, and needs, he leads them to the Father in the task of bringing God to our contemporaries. Families play a privileged role, for in them the life of faith is lived daily in joy, dialogue, forgiveness, and love. The God of Jesus Christ has revealed our grandeur as persons redeemed by love and called in the Church to renew the city of man so that it can become the city of God. In questo compito è importante anzitutto la vigilanza.
Speaking about God, therefore, means enabling others to understand through words and acts that God is not a competitor in our existence, but rather its true guarantor, the guarantor of the greatness of the human person. Thus we return to the beginning. Speaking about God means communicating with power and simplicity, through words and the life we lead, that which is essential. The God of Jesus Christ, the God who showed us a love so great that he took on human flesh, died and rose again for us. The God who asks us to follow him and to allow ourselves to be transformed by his immense love in order to renew our lives and our relationships.
Pater noster, qui es in celis.
With restoration work on St. Peter's colonnade still in progress after 2 years, the Vatican is seeking funds to complete the job. It's a 3.5-year process that is expected to cost 14 million euros, a high price to pay for a truly priceless work of architecture.
Yeah, the colonnade is a masterpiece of the art of the 17th century, made by Bernini, which is one of the best architects of the human history. And the colonnade is represented these two arms as like the arms of men of the church, say, of a woman, which are opening to the world and receiving everybody is coming to the church, to the place where St. Peter's was killed and buried, and where the church, the Catholic Church, was born. So this colonnade is really representing the embrace of the church to the world. So that's why it's not only so beautiful but so important for our faith.
To meet the costs, this official came up with a personalized certificate he hopes will raise up to 3 million euros. It's sold at the post office in St. Peter's Square or also online at the Vatican City State's website at 20 euros apiece.
We have to do it because you can see on the square the difference between the two arms of the colonnade. One is already restored, the other one is going to be restored, and you can see that strong difference. And it's also a problem of security. So they asked to the directors of the Governatorato of the state to think about some initiative to help the restoring. So that's the idea we had as a philatelic office, and we thought to a philatelic certificate, which is a small sheet, technically to say a small sheet, which contains 2 stamps, which can be used to send posts all over the world. So that's the certificate as we have, without the name, and we sell just with the name of the people buying it, and that's one of them with the name of person, and with in this case with the cancellation of the issue date, but you can buy it new or cancelled, and with your name or with the name of somebody you would like to give it as a gift.
All proceeds from the effort will go to the restoration of the unique colonnade of St. Peter's Square.
Welcome back. You're watching Vaticano.
With the local wildlife and thousands of faithful on hand in St. Peter's Square, on December the 2nd, Pope Benedict XVI prayed the Sunday Angelus prayer. He also welcomed the season of Advent as a time to listen to God.
Nel mondo antico indicava la visita del re.
In the ancient world, it indicated the visit of the king or emperor to a province. In the language of Christianity, it refers to the coming of God, to his presence in the world, a mystery that involves the entire cosmos and all of history, and with two culminating moments, the first and the second coming of Jesus Christ. The first is the incarnation, and the second is his glorious return at the end of time. These two moments, chronologically distant, and it is not given to us to know how far apart they are, touch us deeply, because by his death and resurrection, Jesus has already accomplished that transformation of humanity and of the cosmos that is the final goal of creation. But before that end, it is necessary that the gospel be proclaimed to all nations, as Jesus says in the Gospel of St. Mark. The coming of Christ is continuous. The world must be infused by his presence. This permanent coming of the Lord in the proclamation of the gospel requires our continual collaboration. In the midst of the turmoil of the world, or the desert of indifference and materialism, Christians accept the salvation of God and bear witness to it by following a different way of life, as a city placed on top of a hill. In those days, Judah shall be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell safely, announces Jeremiah. This is the name they shall call her, the Lord our justice. The community of believers is a sign of the love of God, of his justice that is already present and working in history, but not yet fully realized, and that therefore should always be awaited, invoked, and sought after with patience and courage.
The Circus came to the Vatican on December 1st. All kinds of itinerant groups, including marching bands, circus folk, and roving entertainers of all sorts and their chaplains, were there for the first official pilgrimage of the Year of Faith.
We are performing from the Pope, and because it's the day of street artists, and we are happy to be here.
From the streets and straight into the Paul VI Hall, the show went on. It was a chance for them to be together for a while, but also a moment to reflect on their service.
Many people come to us for instructions. They come to have their children baptized. They also get married, so we have to be a little bit more flexible. We're not in a parish environment, so consequently we have to adapt to where they are. And we have permission from the Congregation for People on the Move, the Pontifical Council, and they give us the faculties and the permissions to do this, so we can function like a full-time pastor.
There was a little bit of everything, and the Pope was treated to a real show. He also had a word for them.
Dear friends, you spread around your joyful atmosphere and easy burden of daily work. May also be men and women with a strong inner self, open to contemplation and dialogue with God. I pray that your faith in Christ and your devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary may sustain you in your life and work.
All told, it was a great opportunity for people on the move and their pets to spend some time with the Pope.